Hello guys, and welcome to this Cambridge English Advanced exam video course. We're going to be focusing on part 2 of the use of English paper in this video lesson. So let's have a look at the different question types that are involved in the use of English paper. You have part 1 multiple choice close, part 2 open close, part 3 word formation, and part 4 keyword transformations. And as I said, we're going to be focusing on part 2, the open close, in this lesson. So you're going to learn the best tips, technique and strategy to use for part 2 in the exam. And we're also going to look at some practice examples, which will help us to understand and use this technique. So when you get into the exam, it's like second nature. So part 2, open close. How many questions are there in part 2? There are 8 questions. How many texts do you need to read, or passages do you need to read? Just one. How many options can you choose from? No options. So time for my first tip. I suggest that you very quickly read the whole of the text before doing anything else, to get an understanding of what it's about. It's a lot easier to think of the answers to the questions if you understand the overall topic. So let's do a practice example. What I'd like you to do is to open the Cambridge English Advanced 2015 Reading and Use of English sample paper, part 4. Sample paper 4, and I want us to look at part 2, which is on page 4. So you can find this example paper by typing this web address into your internet browser. So pause the video now and type this address into an internet browser, for example Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Safari. Once you've done that, press play. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. If you've typed it incorrectly, you should see a document which looks like this. What we're going to do is to scroll down. There's some useful information here. It's from an old exam paper, so you can see the instructions that you'll be given once you get into the exam. But we're going to scroll down until we find part 2, which is on page 4. Okay. And what I've done is I've actually posted it over here into my presentation, but it might be easier for you to read it on this web page, which is why I asked you to open it. Now I have 2 questions for you to practice reading very quickly for the overall understanding and maybe the odd specific detail. So there's 2 questions, and I want you to just take 30 seconds for each question. So have a read of these questions, number 1 and number 2 at the top here. Then pause the video and time yourself and try to find the first question, the answer for the first question in 30 seconds, and then try to find the answer for the second question in 30 seconds as well. And when you're ready, press play. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. And let's have a look at the answers. So the answer to number 1 is no. After it was invented, did the post-it note become popular immediately? No, it didn't. And number 2, who invented the post-it note? A scientist working for a US company. And we can find the answer to number 1 here in the text. And we can find the answer to number 2 here in the text. Okay. Time for my next tip. Tip number 2. You should locate the first gap and then read the whole sentence. So read the sentence, the words before the gap and after the gap, reading the whole sentence. And you should use the meaning, what you understand from the sentence, the meaning of the sentence, to guess what word might go in the gap. Tip number 3 is to look at the words immediately surrounding the gap. Because if you understand sentence structures in English, you should have an idea of what type of word you need. Do you need an adjective? Do you need a noun? So it's really important for this exam to understand sentence structures and word formations. Is it an adjective? Is it a noun? Is it a relative pronoun? Etc. And this article here from my website will be really useful as a good starting point to read about word families and sentence structures if you don't know a lot about them already. So I advise you type this into your web browser and read this page because it's really useful. And I say that the ending of a word often dictates and indicates what type of word it is. So for example, words which end in ment or eon or ants or ents are normally nouns. This is the type of information that will be really useful for you, because if you know that the word you need in the gap is a noun, because of the words before and after it, you can think, okay, now what type of noun ending do I need? Do I need a noun that ends in ment, or an ants, or an ents, etc. And recognizing word endings and understanding sentence structures will help you get higher marks in the exam. Repeating this because it is really important for the exam to understand word endings and sentence structures. Recognizing what type of word it is. Tip number 4. You normally need to use short connecting words in this part of the exam. For example, prepositions, verbs and relative pronouns. These all come up very often. So if you don't know what these types of words are and what they mean, then you should definitely look them up. What is a relative pronoun? And again, this website, my website, which you can access from this web page here, will be really useful for understanding the different types of words. But now I want us to do another practice example. So what I'd like you to do is again look at this document here, page 4, part 2, and focus particularly on number 9. Okay, and what I've done is I've actually copied it here. It might be easier for you to read here, but it might also be easier for you to read it in this web page here. We're focusing on number 9. So what I'd like you to do is to read the whole sentence first and to think about the meaning, then look at the type of words that are surrounding the gap and to decide what type of word you need. So once you've done that and you've decided what type of word you need, I want you to press play, but right now press pause and have a think. What type of word do you think goes in the gap for number 9? Okay, so hopefully you've done that. Let's have a look at what I've written down here. So I think that a determiner is needed in number 9 to say how clever this is. How clever is it? And what word can go before a or an, then an adjective, because we have a, and then clever, which is an adjective, and then a noun, way, and then a that clause. Because there is a certain type of word which goes for this type of phrase. For example, this could give you a clue. He was a poor boy that he couldn't go to school. So what word do you think could go in the gap here? And this is why understanding sentence structures and what type of words you need to use in sentence structures is really useful. And we can see that the word such can go in this gap, and it can also go in the gap for number 9. He was such a poor boy that he couldn't go to school. So that's exactly what you need to do again. Just to remind ourselves the technique in the exam. Firstly, read the whole passage to have a quick understanding what it's about. Secondly, read the whole sentence. Think about the meaning of the sentence. What type of word fits with the meaning? And then once you understand the meaning and you think you know what type of word you need, then you need to focus really on the type. The type of word. Is it an adjective? Is it a noun? And that depends on the words before and after the gap, as we've seen in this example. Okay, now for homework, you should follow the tips and technique that I've taught you in this lesson. Simple tips and technique. Take those and use them in the same order to complete part 2 of the sample paper on this web page here. So you should try to complete this part 2 for homework. And also, you should also practice this even more by buying a course book and completing the part 2 exercises in a course book using this formula that I've taught you again. And this is a course book that I recommend to all my students. If you type this web address into your browser, it's a really, really good course book because it has lots of exam exercises. So use the tips and technique I've taught you in this course as the formula and the strategy to complete the part 2 exercises from this course book. Okay, and if you would like to book live lessons with me to practice this part of the exam with me, or any other part of the exam, or to practice English in general, you can write me an email at admin@studentlanguages.com and I will be in contact about our lessons. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson, which is part 3 of the use of English paper.